Hey guys, welcome to this tutorial. My name's Finshed. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make lightning in the Blender game engine. So right here I have a nice scene with a floor and some clouds, and if I press spacebar we get lightning popping up. You can see it's sort of changing position every time, and also the cool thing is it's sort of lighting up the clouds as well as the floor upon impact. So I will quickly show you guys how I've set this up. So basically here I have a cloud layer that's just the smoke texture, and I've gone and duplicated it lots on lots of different planes, and yeah, made it look like a cloud when you press P. So there'll be a link for that texture in the description, as well as this finished blend file if you guys want to get it. So moving on to the next bit, we just have the normal floor, a lamp, and a cube here. So what does this cube do? Basically this is our lightning spawner, and if I turn it on to be visible and we press P, you can see it moves around in a random sort of fashion in different directions the whole time. And this is all based on one randomly generated value. As you can see on the top actuator, it's just generating a random number. But also, if you notice, this one little cube isn't moving past the plane, it's staying in this one area. And basically what I did to achieve that is if I press Alt H, you can see I have this little box to sort of contain the cube inside. And so if I quickly make them all visible so we can see what's going on, then you can also see if I press P that the box won't go past any of them, and if it does hit a wall it will end up just staying still and not moving, and then just continue with the next random number generation. So it will stay inside this little boundary without moving out. And yeah, that's pretty handy, especially when you want to just keep your lightning sort of contained within a certain area. So that's how all of that works, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is click File, New. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is up the top here, go to Blender Game, then we're going to go to GLSL in the shading mode, and we're also going to select a frame rate of 60, just so it's sort of nice and even. So the next thing I'm going to do is make this window a little bigger, and then I'm going to go into this object menu here, and I'm going to call my cube lightning spawner. Okay, and then I'm going to move it up a little bit, and we'll go along to the physics panel, and this is going to be a sensor. It's going to detect actors, and for now we want it to be visible, but later it will obviously be invisible. And we'll also select collision bounds just to help with the sort of boundaries and stuff. So now what we want is some random movement. So up the top here I'm going to choose game logic. I'm going to down here change it to textured view, and just so we can sort of see what we're doing. Then on our lightning spawner, with it selected, I'm going to add an always sensor and a random actuator, and we'll join those two together. And then we'll also give it a game property. So yeah, you can just call this number gen or number generator, or anything you want, something you sort of know what it is. And then we're going to change it to integer. Then what we're also going to do is this eye here, we're going to select it, and then also over here in our render settings we're going to scroll down and tick debug properties. What that basically means, if we press P, you'll notice that it has debug properties in the top left hand corner, and it has the current number that our property has at the moment, so we can sort of see whether it's working or not. Okay, so on here in the always sensor I'm going to set it to true, and the frequency maybe something around 10, so we want it to be fairly frequent. And then over here the distribution I'm going to change it to integer uniform, and then we're going to select our property here, and the minimum is going to be 1 with the maximum being 4, because we want obviously 4 directions of movement. If you also wanted to have random movement up and down, then that would obviously be 2 more, so 6, and then yeah, you'd sort of have it working in all those different directions as well. Okay, so the next thing here, we're going to add a property, In fact, we're going to add 4 of them, one for each random value when it pops up. So this first one here is going to be when it's equal to 1. The next one when it's equal to 2. Next one underneath when it's equal to 3. And the last one when it's equal to 4. Okay, and now we'll minimize these top ones because we're done with them. And then on the actuator side we need some motions. So you can just click in here and then press T because it's underlined here, and that will give us a motion. So we'll do that 2 more times and then we'll have the same number as properties, and then we'll join them together like so. And then we need to give our cube some movement. So just to sort of ensure that there isn't any sort of funny and weird direction movement, I'm going to turn off local for the location movement, and also for the rotation, although the rotation doesn't really matter. It's more the location movement. We're turning local off for every single one. There we go. And now what we want to do is when it's equal to 1, I'm going to say I want it to move 0.2 in the x direction, and then when it's equal to number 2 I want it to do the opposite, so negative 0.2, and then those are the first 2 done. And then in this one I'm going to do the y-axis as well because the z-axis is up and down obviously, so this one's going to be 0.2, and then this last one here will be the opposite, so negative 0.2, and we'll minimize that one as well. And now we're done, so we can minimize all of that, give us a bit more space. And now if we press P, there we go, our cube is moving around, and as you can see the number generator is working as well. The cube is moving around quite a bit though, so to reduce this sort of movement we can turn down the frequency to maybe something like 7, so the random movement happens more frequently. And now if we press P, then obviously it's calculating a lot faster and moving in lots of different directions a lot faster. So that's pretty cool. It's sort of got a random movement to it, but it has no limits. So as you can see now, we can hardly see it, sort of off in the corner somewhere, and we probably want to have some barriers to sort of keep it in so it doesn't just, you know, fly off somewhere random where we can't even find it anymore. So to fix that, we're going to press Shift A and add a cube. This is going to be a wall, so we can just call it wall, and then we can press SX to scale along the x-axis, and then SZ to scale along the z-axis. Again, you might just want to make it as high as the cube, but just in case, I'm obviously going to make it a little bit higher. And then with my wall selected, I'm going to go to the physics panel here. I'm going to select actor and collision bounds down here, and then I'm going to give my wall a property, and this can just be anything really, so we'll just have it be float, and it's going to be called stop, although you can call it wall or whatever you want. And then in our cube here, the lightning spawner, we're going to add a collision property, and this is going to be when it detects the collision with the property stop, and that's going to be set on true. So this property here is the same one as on the wall, and then what it's going to do is basically, say for example we gave our cube here the value 4, and then it will go in the negative y-axis, and if it did happen to hit this wall back here, then obviously it would go through, there'd be nothing stopping it. But if the current value is going towards the wall, then if it collides and we do the opposite value, then it will obviously stay still because the values will be sort of pushing against each other. So I hope that wasn't too confusing, but basically what we're going to do is when it does collide, we're going to make it do the opposite of what the property is doing. So I'm going to add an AND controller here, join my collision to it, and right now I'm going to do it for the first one. So when number gen is equal to 1, right now we have it going 0.2 on the x-axis. So I'm going to join this to the AND controller, but this time, this end piece, I'm actually going to join it to number 2. so it'll be going negative 0.2, and then they'll sort of cancel each other out, and if it does hit the side, then it will stay still and won't move anywhere till the next value is generated. So there we go. Now I'm going to do it for the second one, so the collision sensor joined in, and then we're going to do it for number gen 2, and then on this end here we're going to have to select number 1 this time, because that's obviously the opposite of negative 0.2 is positive 0.2, and then we'll do it for the last ones as well. So join up the collision sensor and these two properties up here, and so number 3 will be joined up to number 4, and then number 4 will be joined up to number 3. There we go. So we can quickly test this out by grabbing our cube here, or our wall, and moving it really close, and then we can press Shift D, GY, and we'll bring it over here. Then I'm going to hold down Shift and select both of them and press Shift D, RZ90, and that will just make a duplicate on the Z axis. And now if we move this cube down just a little bit and press P, you'll notice it's sort of getting stuck on the walls. Like, it will move around in its little sort of maneuver, but if it does hit the side, it will just stay still. So I'm going to make these a little bit bigger, so maybe something like that, and I'm going to move these ones over this way a bit. Don't be too worried about scaling them a little bit bigger than they need to be, because obviously if they're a little bit not enough, then this cube here can probably find a way to slip through. So rather make it a little bit too much than not enough for both sides. So SY, and I'm going to also do it for these ones, so SX, and I'm just going to bring it somewhere like that. Okay, cool. So we have our lightning spawner moving around in a contained box. Now I'm just going to quickly add myself a floor, so we sort of have something for the lightning to collide with, and I'm going to move it down something like that. The next thing I'm going to do is give this floor a texture, so I'm going to press S first of all and make it nice and big, and then I'm going to give it a material, and this won't have any specular. And then also we can leave on back facing, but you can also turn it off just for sort of selecting reasons, and that should all be fine. Then along to the texture tab, I'm going to give it a new texture, image or movie, UV, and that should be fine. Now I'm just going to open a random floor texture. So in my example I use grass, so I don't see why I shouldn't use grass again, but you can just do tiles or something, anything you really want to. It's just a texture for the ground. And then in our window here we're going to press tab and then U unwrap, and that should unwrap it for us, but obviously it is way too big. So in here I'm going to change it to UV image editor, and then I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode and press S to scale, and we want to drag it so it's something like that, maybe even more, something like that. Looks good. So right now we just need some lightning, so I'm going to go and open up GIMP, and we're going to paint ourselves some lightning, which will be fairly exciting. So I'm going to click File New, then I'm going to change it to 512 as the width and 1024, so double as the height. Then I'm going to click OK. Then under colors here I'm going to select color to alpha, and we're just going to click OK. So we don't have a background at all, nice and invisible. Okay, so here we're going to select our paint tool, then we're also going to select this brush here, and we're going to leave it on size 20. Then the last thing we need to do is our color. We're going to change it to white, and then click OK. Then I'm going to move my mouse somewhere around the top here, and then I'm going to hold down, and I'm just going to draw a jagged line, so something like that. Not too jagged, but obviously I guess you can have some features curving out like so. And the bottom you want to finish about here, so make sure you leave a gap at the very bottom of it, don't draw all the way down. Okay, cool, so we have the main body of it going. Now we want to change it to 10, or maybe even 7, and then we want to have sort of bits that just sort of arc off, so maybe somewhere here. Oh, that one didn't look too good. Maybe something like that. Then on this side, maybe one over here. This one will definitely have one. And maybe one over there. Okay, and now we're going to add the even smaller parts. So maybe 4 as our brush size, and then we're going to sort of have little branches off here. So ones like that. You can obviously add sort of double dot branches on themselves. This is just something sort of random to stick in, make it look nice and pretty. But yeah, so something like that should be fine. Okay, there we go. So if you also want to, I guess we can add some to the main part of it, but yeah, that should be fine. Now what we need to do is make it look a little bit more like lightning. So I'm just going to finish this one off. Then I'm going to go to Layer and click New from Visible. And then with this visible layer selected, I'm going to go to Filters, Blur, and we're going to select Gaussian Blur. So I'll click on that, and we'll open this window up. And I found a good value for this was 23, although you might want to experiment with maybe 20 or I don't know, 25, depending on how you've sort of painted it. But yep, and then we'll just click in this field and it should be the same. Then I'm going to click OK, and this will sort of give us a nice little glow around the arcing off bits. And then obviously the smaller parts don't have as much glow, but the main body does, which is important. Okay, cool, so we have that done. Now I'm going to go File, Export, and just in my documents is fine. I'm going to call this Lightning, then click Export, and there we go. So that's the lightning done. Now we sort of need a impact, so when it's hit the ground, a sort of texture for that. So what I found out we can fairly easily do is go to cgtextures.com, go under Fire, then Fireworks, and we want to have something like that. So right here, this texture, you can sort of see something's come down and hit it, and there's lots of sparks sort of sparking off. So obviously this is a firework, it isn't properly from lightning, but yeah, so one of these textures, again, you aren't limited to these. You can go ahead and sift through all of these other ones as well, but yeah, you want to try get one with not too many sparks or features around the edges. Okay, so I've already chosen one. It was this one here, if you want to get it. And so I'm going to go ahead and open that up. So I'm going to go to User, Downloads, and I'm going to scroll down to Fireworks, which should be, oh, not that far. So maybe somewhere around here. Okay, there we go, there's flames and fireworks. Okay, so the one we want is right here. So when we're going to click open and open that one up. Then in our sort of window here, what we're going to first of all do is click layer, and then we're going to add a alpha channel. Then we're going to select our eraser here, and obviously we're going to turn up the size a bit, so maybe 20. So I'm going to move around with my middle mouse button, and I'm going to zoom in by holding down Control and scrolling. Okay, so we're going to zoom in a bit here by holding down Control and scrolling, obviously, and we're going to rub out these parts over here. So something like that. Okay, so get rid of all of these, and then also we don't want that much smoke because it'll be stationary and you can sort of notice that it's fake if you see the same piece of smoke over and over again. So we want to sort of clip it nicely. In this end part here, we sort of want something close to a point. So maybe something like that. And then another wisp of smoke over here, which we can just rub out, like so. And we'll just clip it nicely like this. Okay, so our brush is a bit small, so I'm going to turn it up and change this brush size. And I'm going to rub out all of this over here, just so it's sort of clipped a bit nicer, and then we don't have, you know, particles just on the side that wouldn't actually be there if the lightning struck. Okay, so something like that is good. And now the next thing we want to do is up the top here, go to colors and select color to alpha, and we want to select the color black, click OK, and then click OK again, and there we go, there's all our background gone. Now we need to go to colors again, and we're going to go to brightness and contrast. Then we'll click on that, it'll bring up a window. We want no brightness and no contrast. Then we'll click OK, and we'll do it one more time, and this time it will make it nice and bright, and so we can see this is sort of where the lightning bolt has hit. And that doesn't look too nice in the corner there, so I'm just going to clip that off a bit, make it a bit more as one bolt. So something like that. Now what we will need to do is, again, we want it to give it a nice sort of little glow, so I'm going to click layer new from visible again, and then we're going to go to filters, blur, and Gaussian blur. And for this one we don't need as much, so I'm just going to change it to maybe 5, or not that much, maybe 12, so close to half of it, what we currently had. Then we'll click OK, and as you can see, if you look closely, there should be lots of nice little glowy bits all around each sort of fragmented piece. So we're done, so we're going to export this one as well. Instead of JPEG though, if you did by accident go overwrite, we need to export it as PNG, and again you can select a suitable location. I'm just going to choose documents because it's the same one as the original lightning texture. Then we'll click export and export it out like so, and there we go, we're done. So we can close those, and we're done with GIMP as well as CG textures, and we can go back into Blender here. Then we'll go to layer 2, press Shift A and add a plane, then press SX and scale it a bit, and then SY, and then this is going to be called lightning, and we're going to give it a material, so new material, no specular, no back facing, and our transparency should be on with alpha set to nothing. Then I'm going to give it a new texture, image or movie, UV, and we're going to also down here select alpha, and then we're going to click open and select our textures. So I'm going to go into documents, and we want to have lightning, so we'll open that up, and then we're going to press tab U and unwrap. I'm going to make this window a little bigger, and instead of actually changing the image, making sure I'm in this window, I'm just going to press R90, and that should switch it around for us. Then one more thing I need to do is go to the material settings here and change the emission value to 2. Although you can just leave it at 1 if you'd rather. It just, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, there we go. There's a nice sort of lightning bolt there. Now we're going to add the sparks, or the sort of collision with the ground. So this will be another plane. It's going to be at the bottom though. We can press S to make it a little bigger. And we also want to move it either underneath or above, so it isn't sort of glitching like it currently is. So I'm going to move it above slightly. Then I'm going to scroll up, click new, turn off specular, turn off, you can turn on shadeless if you want, or you can just have it emitting stuff, so just 2 should be fine. You can turn off back facing, but again leave it on if you want to. Transparency will be on and alpha set to 0. Then we'll give it a new texture, image or movie, UV, and down here alpha, and then we'll open up our texture we made, so back into documents, and then we're going to select our sort of impact texture, so this one right here, fireworks. We'll open that up, and then we'll move this across a bit. Okay, so we're going to go to 7, or top view, and then press tab U unwrap, and now that should unwrap it, but it's obviously on the side, so I'm going to press tab and then in this window here R90 and it will switch it for us, and then I'm going to move it something like that at the end of the of the lightning bolt. So as you can see, where we didn't rub out, there's sort of a nasty little line there, but also if we deselect it, you'll notice there's fairly clear that there's edges around it. So what we will actually need to do is go back into GIMP and make it a bit more less obvious that there's edges in the texture. So we're going to go to File, Open Recent, select Fireworks, and then I'm going to go to Layer, New Layer, and we're just going to select White. Then I'm going to click OK, go to the Fill In tab here, and click in it, and then I'm going to select my layer here and just press the down arrow to move it down, and now we have our top one up the top there. Okay, so you can see it sort of has a nice little glow here, but what we want to do is sort of make it a bit more jagged, especially around the edges here. So we're going to go to this eraser here. I'm going to change it to this brush again, and 20 should be fine. Now what I'm going to be doing is first of all getting rid of these, making sure you have Fireworks selected. We have to get rid of these outside ones a bit, maybe just in here. We'll dig in something like that. Okay, that should be good, and then we want sort of a jagged bit here. So you sort of want it sort of star shaped, like, you know, so it has points where it's blasting out from, and then other points where it's not blasting out from, so there's sort of gaps. And that sort of makes it look a little bit less like we've just stuck a picture of some exploding firework in there. Okay, so a little bit of tweaking here and there. Something like that. Okay, and then I'm just going to do over here a bit. Especially making sure around the edges, they're the most important ones that make it look fake. So maybe the ones over here is what we really need to watch out for. And these ones over here, we'll rub those out, and then we'll dig a bit into the texture itself here. Okay, so I'm going to dig a little bit into here, but basically that should be the majority of it done. I'm also going to get rid of this one here, and yeah, I guess you can sort of, I'm going to turn up the size just to stop that nasty line from being able to be seen. So just rub out all around the texture what we're not using, so something like that, and we'll also do it on this side here. Okay, there we go. That should be the majority of it done. So I'm going to select the eye here, and that will make the black layer invisible. Then we'll click File and overwrite Fireworks PNG, and that will export it over. Then I'm going to go back into my Blender game here. I'm going to select my plane, then I'm going to go along here, and I'm going to click Refresh. And there we go. Now we'll look a little bit more like it's sort of hit something, and there's bits sparking off it, which is cool. So now we're going to join those two together. So first of all, I'm going to press SX to make it a little bit bigger, just for this one. And then I'm going to hold down Shift, select the lightning, and press Control J, and that will join them. And then I'm going to press Shift D, G, Y, move it along the Y-axis, and now we want something different. So Tab to go into edit mode, and then RX 180, and that will flip it. And then also what we need to do to make sure it's flipped properly is press Tab again, go into face select mode, select our fireworks here at the bottom, and move them up above the lightning, just like over here. And actually the closer you can get the gap to be, the better. So we'll do that for this one as well. Move it down a bit. Okay, and if you want it obviously to be more accurate, you can press numpad 5 to go into orthographic view, and then you can zoom up and make sure it's, I don't know, perfectly in place or something. Okay, cool. So that's these two done. For this one also, for more variation, I'm going to select the this sort of plane here and press SX just a little and move it down a bit so it's something like that. Then I'm going to press Shift-D GY, move it along, and this time we need a lot more variation, so I'm going to select everything and then press RX 180 so it's back to where we started, except this time we're going to have to bring our impact back up again above the lightning, and I'm also going to press RX 180 with the impact, and I guess you can stretch it. Maybe for this one we'll stretch it, otherwise you could squash it down as well if you wanted to. And then the lightning texture itself, I'm going to select it by selecting the face it's on, and then we'll make this UV image editor window a little bigger, and then we're going to select lightning here, and then I'm going to press SY, move it down, and that will just stretch out the texture a little bit for us. So something like that. And then that will obviously mean we're going to move this impact texture down a little, something like that, just to match it up. And there we go, there's our three sort of different variations of lightning hitting the ground. So if you really wanted to, you could add more, you could paint different versions of lightning hitting the ground or whatever, but just for this tutorial's sake I'm just doing 3. Okay, so we'll join that window back up, go to layer 1, and this is going to have to start spawning lightning. So we're going to move it up slightly, not above the box level though, because we don't want it sort of flying off into the distance again. And on the actuator side I'm going to add an edit object, and you can see E is underlined, so we can just press E by clicking in here, and then we'll add an edit object actuator. So we need to do that 3 times for each one. Then in the first one I'm going to select lightning, then the second one lightning 001, and the last one lightning 002. Okay, and the time for this one is going to be about 6 or 7. Maybe even we'll just do 5, see how that goes. You can always turn it up. So 5, and we'll do that for the last one as well. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an AND controller, and then we're going to add a keyboard. So again, if you wanted this to be happening at random times, you could always set up another random generator, and then when that hits a certain value, you can make it sort of, I don't know, shoot off lightning. But I'm just going to be using a space key to sort of trigger when lightning should be arcing off the cloud or whatever. So I'm going to select a keyboard sensor and press spacebar, and then I'm going to join it to my AND controller, and I'm going to change it to tap just so it isn't constant. And then I'm going to join it up to my first value here, so when it's equal to 1 and I press spacebar, then I want it to spawn the original lighting. Then I'm going to add another AND controller, join it to the spacebar again, and this time for property 2. So when it's equal to 2, then what we want it to do is spawn lightning number 2, although again you can do it in any order you want, as just the way I'm doing it. And then we're going to add another AND controller, join the keyboard, and property 3, and then we'll join that one to the last one, but then we still got one left. So if you wanted to have sort of make it seem a bit more random, so when you did press spacebar and sometimes it didn't work, then I guess you could leave it, but I want to have it working every time I press spacebar, so I'm going to add one more AND controller, join up the keyboard, join up the last property, I think, not that one, this one here, number 3, which I forgot, and join it up to this last AND controller, and then I'm going to just join this to maybe number 2. So, I don't know, maybe number 1, whatever one you wanted to sort of have spawn in a little bit more than the others, possibly the one that looked the best. So, if we select our walls here and make them invisible by, under physics, selecting invisible, and we do that for all of them, so just select them and then select invisible, and now if we press P, you'll see we have our little moving cube moving around, and when we press spacebar, you'll notice it's spawning some lightning. but it is in the middle of the cube and it isn't hitting the ground yet. So we're going to go to layer 2 and then we're going to select our lightning, and basically what we need is this yellow point here is where it's being spawned, and we need that to be at the top of the lightning. So I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode, press A to deselect, and then A to select everything, and we want to move this yellow point up to the very top like that, and we'll do that for all of them. So A to deselect, A to select everything, move it to the top, tab to go into edit mode, A to deselect, A to select everything, and all the way to the top, and there we go. That's all of those done. Now we just need the rotation the right way around, so back to layer 1. Then I'm going to select my cube here, and I'm going to press RY90. We'll just hope that does the trick. So now if we press P and press spacebar, there we go, that did the trick. So now we have lightning coming down and hitting the ground. Although I'm not quite sure if it is actually hitting the ground. So I'm going to move my ground up a bit and try get a leveled off view. Press P again, and the lightning looks pretty much the same. So I'm going to move the ground up a little bit just so I can sort of see where the lightning is heading, and that seems to be the spot. So around this is when the lightning is actually hitting, so I'm going to move it down just a really small amount and then press P, and there we go, there's our lightning hitting the ground, but it isn't making much of an impact. I mean, it looks cool, but it's not, you know, lighting up the scene properly. So to change that, we're going to go to layer 2 again, and we're going to press Shift A, and we're going to add ourselves a lamp, and this is going to be a point lamp, and we're going to go into the settings here for it. It's going to have an energy of 1.5 or 2, and the distance here we're going to change it to 40, so it covers quite a bit of distance and it looks nice and bright. And then we're going to drag it down to the bottom, so where the impact is, obviously that should be the brightest, so something like that. I'm going to move it up the top here so we can, yeah, it'll be closer to the camera and obviously look a lot nicer as it will light up things in front of the lightning, not behind it. And then just somewhere around the bottom, I mean, you could do it really far down the bottom, but it might go through the floor, so we want to keep it somewhere in the middle here. And then we're going to hold down Shift, select our lightning, and press Control P, and then parent, and there we go, that has our light parented to our lightning. So if you want to, you can select this lamp here, press Shift D, GX, and move it along to the top here to light up your clouds. But if you don't have any clouds to light up, or you don't really want that effect, or don't think you really need it, again, it's just going to be eating into your processing power for your entire game. So if you don't need it, definitely delete it. Okay, so we have our main one down here at the bottom, that's the most important. Then what we're going to do is press Shift D, GY, and we're going to move it to our second one here. Again, I'm going to make sure it's above the lightning here, and then you'll notice it's still parented to the first one, so to fix that I'm going to press Alt P and then clear parent, and then I'm going to hold down Shift, select the new lightning with the lamp selected, and then press Control P and parent. So now if we select this lightning and move it around, they should move together, and then same for this one over here. Okay, so now we'll do it for the last one. So select the lamp, Shift D, GY, move it over here, move it above the lightning, maybe move it down a bit for this texture because it's stretched, and then press Alt P, clear parent, hold down Shift, select the lightning bolt, then press Control P and parent. There we go, so now if we press G we can move that around, and the same for all the other ones. Okay, cool, so now if we go back to layer 1 and go into our side view here and press P, and we can press spacebar, and you'll notice the floor sort of lights up with each impact. So just to make this a little bit more obvious, I'm going to change my current lamp here in my scene to a Hemi, and I'm going to turn the energy down to 0.02 so it's nice and dark. And then now if I press P and press spacebar, it lights up the scene a lot more, and obviously it looks like it's actually making a nice big impact. So there we go. I think that is basically the main part of it. So all the main lightning done properly. Now what obviously you need is just a cloud. So I'm not really going to show you guys how to do that. It's obviously pretty simple. You just get a texture, which again will be in the description just in case you guys want it, and just duplicate it lots and rotate it in different directions. If you're still not sure, there will also be the finished blend file of this working as you saw at the start. If you really want to, you can just append that in to your own games. So last finishing touch here, we're going to select our box and change it to invisible, the lightning spawner. And now if we press P, you can see nothing except for our debug properties, which are going crazy at the moment. And if we press spacebar, we have lightning pop up here, and you can tap it constantly and it moves position, which is sort of cool. So another thing I guess you can experiment with is increasing your movement speed here, so it's moving a lot faster and a lot more in different directions, but also balancing it out with your always sensor. If you want it to light it sort of more space, you can go to layer 2 and we can select our lamps here and change the distance to, I don't know, 100 or whatever. So either way, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, found it helpful. If you could leave a like, a comment, a share, anything, that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.